is a topic I am very passionate about, so I'm probably going to talk a lot and need something to help with that. So, let's just jump straight on in. I will preface this with, if you've never seen Gilmore Girls before, and you think this is a show that you might want to check out, or you have been meaning to check out but have not yet, then pause this video, go away, watch Gilmore Girls, have the best time of your life, and come back because this will have spoilers in it. This will have a lot of spoilers throughout, because I don't know how you can do a ramble about a show you love and it be spoiler free. So lots and lots of spoilers, but if you know the show or don't care, then it's fine. So I first watched Gilmore Girls, I would like to say about 13 years ago. I was very young when I first was introduced to it. Maybe more like 14 years ago. I'm not entirely sure of my age, but I was young. And I was introduced to the show through my mother, who is a huge fan of the show, and watched it all throughout my childhood. And all of a sudden, for one of her birthdays, somebody gave her the season 3 box set on DVD. Now, I had seen snippets when my mum had been watching it, but I don't recall ever knowing really what the show was about. Me and my dad would make fun of the theme song because we thought it was kind of cringy, I guess. And that's really my only formative memories of the show until my mum got the box set of season 3 for her birthday. And one day I was bored, so I picked it up, and I knew that I was only allowed to watch things that were a U or a PG, which is our rating over here in the UK. U stands for universal, and that means it's suitable for people of all ages, and PG stands for parental guidance. Basically means that it's recommended that if you think you've got a child that might be more sensitive to certain things, maybe you watch it through with them first, rather than leave them unsupervised. But I didn't really scare easily or anything, so I was allowed to watch U's and PG's, and this had no rating on it. And I remember asking my mum, because I was bored and I didn't know what to watch, if I could watch it, and she said sure, why not. I don't think she really imagined that, considering my age, I would take any particular interest in it, but I did. I have little to no memories of watching the first series, or first season that I watched was series 3 for the first time. I don't recall it. All I slightly remember is, for anybody who remembers, the first episode of season 3 starts out with a dream sequence where Lorelai, the main character, is imagining that she is married to another character called snippets of things that come along that I do very vividly recall watching for the first time, because it took me about, I would say, 2 or 3 years to watch from series 1 to series 7 of Gilmore Girls, a 7 series, because I would get a box set maybe for my birthday or Christmas, or and I waited about 3 years to be able to watch it all, which is so crazy now considering Netflix, and you could probably binge it all in a week if you were feeling super dedicated to do so. But yeah, it took me about 3 years, and it consumed my whole life. It felt like, because nobody else I knew watched it except for me and my mum. None of my friends had ever heard of it or had any interest. I mean, it was not that normal that someone, I suppose, of that age is watching a more like teenage or young adult kind of show. So for a very, very long time, Gilmore Girls felt like it was just for me. I can't describe that enough. And I remember I was about 16 or 17 when people that I knew and friends of mine started watching it for the first time, and I liked that. Part of me loved that because I had more people I could talk to about it, and it wasn't just me. But then I hated that it wasn't just me anymore. It wasn't, people had differing opinions to me, oh my gosh, and it wasn't my own secret special thing anymore. I felt, I guess people can relate, right, when you feel such an attachment to something and you think, this has meant so much to you for so many years, nobody else surely can match with that love that you have for it, and being the only person for so long to have any awareness or interest in it, yeah, it was jarring, suddenly, for so many people to be interested. So if you don't know, Gilmore Girls is about Lorelai Gilmore and Lorelai Gilmore, her daughter, better known as Rory. Lorelai has Rory when she's 16. She has a fraught relationship with her parents, who are upper class, wealthy, and very much, raised Lorelai silver teaspoon style. Is that what you call it? Silver spoon style. And so we're very disappointed and thrown off by her getting pregnant at such a young age. And it was her choice, they didn't kick her out. She decided that once she'd had Rory for a little bit, that she was going to leave when Rory was still a baby, go out on her own and move to Stars Hollow, which is a really small Connecticut town where everybody knows everybody. Everybody's all up in each other's business, but it's also a really loving and tight-knit community, and that's where she raises Rory. She works at an inn called the Independence Inn. She starts off there as a teenager working as a maid. I knew I'd need this with all my talking. But she moves up and ends up running the inn. Her friend Suki is a chef at the inn, and she's kind of like whimsical and scatterbrained and always injuring herself. And Rory grows up, and she's 15, turning 16 into a few episodes into the season 1 when we meet her. Very intelligent, very, what's the word I'm thinking of? She's sure of who she is. I would say she's confident in who she is, but she's not a loud person. But she's confident in that she's perhaps not like the other girls, She's very passionate about reading. She's desperate to get into Harvard University, and she wants to become a journalist. And really the main storyline starts when Rory gets into a very prestigious school called Chilton. But Lorelai, her mother, can't afford the tuition fees, so Lorelai asks Richard and Emily Emily her parents for the first time ever if they would lend her some money so that Rory can go to this great school and hopefully have a better chance of getting into Harvard. And her mother agrees that they will lend this money to Lorelai on the one condition that every Friday night Rory and Lorelai go over there for Friday night dinner, because we get the impression very quickly that they don't see much of Emily and Richard. Rory does not have a huge relationship with her grandparents because Lorelai does not have much of a relationship with her parents at all. You know, when Emily opens the door, she says, "Is it Easter already or Christmas already?" Like, they only ever really see each other at the major holidays and aren't actively a part of each other's lives. It's obvious, I think, throughout the series that Emily and Richard are loving people and they care a great deal about Lorelai. But it's their way or the highway, and they have very old money prejudice views, and they're often not willing to shake them aside. Back in Stars Hollow, other main characters include Michelle, who works at the Independence Inn with Lorelai and Suki, and he's kind of like snarky and sarcastic. I love Michelle, he's a great character. There's Lane, who is Rory's best friend, and there is Luke, who runs the diner that Lorelai and Rory go to eat in every single day because they have a crazy coffee obsession. I've got tea because I don't drink coffee, but their whole thing is that they love coffee. And from the very outset, it's a huge will they, won't they, between Lorelai and Luke. You can tell that he really likes her, and you think if she stopped to realise for a minute that she would probably really like him. But they go on quite a journey, and it's a very long time before they end up together, and then they get together and all chaos breaks loose. And in season 1, we see Rory get her first boyfriend, and he's called Dean. And we see Lorelai getting together with Max Medina, who is Rory's new English literature teacher at Chilton. The Chilton cast of characters, the main other person at Chilton really is Paris Geller, who is a fellow student and is very similar to Rory in a lot of ways. She also wants to go to Harvard. She's very studious, but she is, I would say, less confident overall in who she is as a person. Her parents are very wrapped up in themselves, and in season 1 they're very wrapped up in their own divorce. They don't have a lot of time for Paris, and I think she channels all of her energy into schoolwork because she feels like that's all she's good at. She's not good at having a social life. Perhaps she really doesn't want to have much of one, but I think that's the only area of her life she feels particularly confident in, and she places everything on that. Rory, to a certain degree, I think places a lot on academic achievement. She's very conscientious, but she has a lot of grounding still from other figures in her life that Paris probably doesn't have. So, I've kind of set it up there for people who don't know much about it, and I guess now I'm probably just going to hop back and forth my different hot takes and all that kind of stuff, so it's probably going to be much more interesting for people who know the show, but I'm hoping for people who don't, you can just drift into the land of nod to this. So, I guess the most important question is, who do I ship most out of all of the suitors for Lorelai and Rory throughout the 7 seasons? So obviously for Lorelai, season 1 has Max Medina, Rory's teacher. They get engaged at the end of season 1, and at the beginning of season 2 she bails on him and interest that she has. I do really like Max, but I think most fans at that point were still very eager to see what Luke and Lorelai could become. So they don't want her to really pursue anything. I would have found it, and I think I did find it back when I first watched it, very hard, because I really, really did like Max. But I didn't want it fully to work with Max, because I wanted to see what could happen between Luke and Lorelai. Then obviously you've got Christopher, who is Rory's kind of estranged father. He shows up a couple of times in season 1, and then at the end of season 2, you think that Lorelai and Christopher are going to properly get together. Christopher's going to leave his girlfriend for her. He's always loved Lorelai, but he's never really been active in Rory's life at all. He says that he wants to change that, but I think, and so do a lot of other fans of the show, that really he just sort of uses Rory to get close to Lorelai. That's kind of who he's mostly fussed about. And in season 2, yeah, it seems like him and Lorelai are gonna get together finally, give it like a proper shot. Emily and Richard, Lorelai's parents, are absolutely chuffed at that, because they think that Rory should always have both of her biological parents being together. They're very traditionalist in that sense, and they think that if that can work, then that's brilliant. However, Suki gets married at the end of season 2 to the fruit and veg produce man for the independents in Jackson Belleville. Who, again, they've got such a fun dynamic. And at the wedding, which Lorelai and Christopher go to together, Christopher gets the call that his girlfriend Sherry, who he was going to go home and break up with because they were on the rocks already, kind of at the point of breaking up pretty much, is pregnant. And Lorelai, understandably knowing that she went through raising Rory by herself without Christopher, does not want him to do that to another child, and tells him, you need to go back to Sherry and try and make it work for this child, which he does. I don't like Christopher. I don't know many people that really like Christopher. He's very typical of wants to be a part of their lives when it works for him. He kind of sees Lorelai as his great love, and I think he often only makes an effort with Rory because of that. As the seasons go on, I hate him more and more and more. Season 7, the last season, is most fans' least favourite season. It's certainly mine. Amy Sherman-Palladino, who wrote and often directed the series, didn't have anything to do with the 7th season, and it really shows. Season 7 is messy in a couple of ways. One of which is that in season 6, Luke and Lorelai are engaged. They get together at the end of season 4 into the beginning of season 5, and they break up and they have trials and tribulations, but by the end of season 6, or the middle of season 6, they're engaged. But Luke discovers that he has a daughter called April, another fan least favourite, and basically he ends up feeling like he can't pursue a marriage with Lorelai whilst trying to get to know April, which makes no sense to me or to Lorelai. She doesn't get it, and she ends up telling Luke she doesn't want to wait for him any longer, and that they need to elope. And Luke says that that's sprung on him too quickly, he's not ready. And so she says, okay, that's it then. And in her mind, that's it, they've broken up. And so season 6 ends with her waking up in bed with Christopher. discussed by Christopher and by Lorelai when they break up in season 7, because they get married and they get a divorce in season 7. Christopher basically says, for the first time in our lives since you've had Rory, we were both single, we were both together, and I pushed you to marry me because I felt like finally this was the only time, and if I didn't rush and I didn't snap you up whilst you were free, you would realise that we weren't meant to be together and that you didn't feel how I felt about you. And so he kind of rushed into the whole marriage thing, and he admits that. And she admits that, what's the line? She says, "You're the man I want to want. You've no idea how much I wish." She wishes that she loved him, as she should, but she doesn't, and he's such a Luke rebound, and he knows he's a Luke rebound, but I think he'd rather have her as a Luke rebound than not at all. But they do end up breaking up, thank goodness, and getting a divorce, and at the very, very end of season 7, Luke and Lorelai do reconcile. This is one of the memories, very, very burnt into my brain, the memory of watching the last ever episode for the first time, because my DVD player started playing up. The last episode is such a beautiful episode. I still love it, no matter what I dislike about certain directions the show took. And season 7, I do absolutely love the final episode, and there's a moment where Luke has planned this whole big thing to say goodbye to Rory because she's graduated from Yale, where she ends up going instead of Harvard. And she's heading off on Barack Obama's presidency tour as a journalist. And so the whole town, but mostly Luke, plans a leaving party for her. And Lorelai finds out Luke was the one behind it, and he says, "I just like to see you happy," and they kiss. However, my DVD player at this moment decided to start freezing, so I'm crying, right? I think that this is the last time I'm ever gonna be with these characters that have shaped my cultural tastes and who I am as a person so much. Films, books, movies, music, TV music, and I was so glad that they got together, that they were going to get together again. And I'm crying my eyes out, and I'm in the moment, I'm feeling it, and Luke and Lorelai are jutting towards each other like slow motion robots, because my DVD player is messing up. And I distinctly remember calling for my dad, because I was like, I literally remember saying something like, "This is a really important moment and it's messing up," and getting really stressed. But I'm glad that they worked it out and ended up back together, but I think it was an unnecessarily contrived path for them to get there. In between that, in season 4, where's my season 4 box set? Let's grab that. Lorelai also dates somebody called Jason Stiles, who is her dad's business partner. I hate him. I have no interest in him. I thought he was such a wrong personality for Lorelai. I really disliked him. I'm so glad he only lasted one season and then he was gone. So then Rory obviously starts off season 1 dating Dean, who is tall and good looking. He has sort of similar taste in books and movies. Their very first conversation, Rory makes a reference to the film Rosemary's Baby, and he knows what that is, and he's willing to read books that he hasn't read before for her, and it's puppy love, it's her first love. They break up in the middle of series 1 because because he says that he loves her and she's not ready to say that back to him. I've always felt like, I think people give Dean a really hard time for that, forgetting he's a 16-year-old boy. I do think he's in the wrong for that. And he's not willing to hear Rory out. He just immediately reacts with anger and breaks up with her. I do think that's wrong. But he's a 16-year-old, know what I mean? I think any 16-year-old, the frontal lobe's not anywhere near there yet, so, it's one of those things. They get back together at the end of season 1, and they are together throughout the whole of season 2. Where's season 2? I think 2 and 3 are my favourite seasons. They are still together throughout season 2, despite the fact that somebody new comes onto the scene called Jess Mariano, who is Luke's nephew. He comes in, I think the episode Nick and Nora, Sid and Nancy, which is maybe episode 5 or 4, something like that. And he comes to stay with Luke because he's been getting into a lot of trouble. He lives in New York with his mum, who is Luke's sister, but he's been getting into a lot of trouble. Jess's mum can't handle him anymore and sends him to live with Luke. He is got everything in common with Rory, books and movies, which by this point they slowly phase out the fact that originally Dean did have a decent amount of those interests. He didn't have all of them. He didn't have perhaps the full academic smarts that Rory did, and Jess does have that, but he's a bad boy. He doesn't apply himself in school. He's very, very naturally bright. He reads a lot. He loves to read. But he's kind of just got no interest in the education system. He doesn't really seem to see a future for himself. And he's got no interest in seeing any long-term goals or anything like that. But as soon as he moves in, he takes a real liking to Rory, and Rory takes a real liking to him. And throughout season 2, there's kind of a will they, won't they, and Dean's stuck in the middle. He can tell something's going on, and it's kind of sad. I don't love Dean, but it's kind of sad for him because Rory is in the wrong here. She's not breaking up with Dean, she's still with Dean, but we know she likes Jess, and at the end of one of the episodes, Dean is outside the house waiting for Rory, and she's not come home yet. Instead, Lorelai pulls up at the house, and Dean just goes, "She likes Jess, doesn't she?" And Lorelai says nothing because she knows it's true. Dean just sort of nods and walks sadly away, so he knows that she likes him. He never seems to address it with Rory. I think he's too scared to address it with her. But at the end of season 2, at Suki and Jackson's wedding, Jess, who left town because he gets into a car accident with Rory, that wasn't his fault, but everyone's blaming him apart from Luke. Everyone's blaming him for it. So he sort of leaves town in the middle of the night. He comes back, and there's this whole, I could probably recite the whole thing, Rory's just been strolling, because it's like a sort of woodland bit with Christopher. Christopher gets a phone call, I think, that we now know is from Sherry, saying that she's pregnant. And Rory sort of wanders a bit by herself, and suddenly there's Jess. And she's like, "Why did you come back?" And he goes, "Just wanted to." And then she kisses him, and then very panically tells him not to tell anybody. Or she says, "Don't say a word," and then she runs off. She says, "Welcome home," and then she runs off to be with Dean at Suki and Jackson's wedding. So she kisses him and then runs off back to Dean, and that is where we meet season 3 at, in terms of Rory's situationship. She's still with Dean up until maybe 10 or 11 episodes into season 3, and in the end she's fed up of playing Piggy in the middle. She's into him and he's into her since the day he got into town, and it's very obvious, and he's tried to ignore it. He doesn't want to anymore. He's fed up of it, and it's true. As much, again, as I'm not a huge fan of Dean's arc throughout the first couple of seasons, Rory's in the wrong. She's strung him along dreadfully, and pretty much the second Dean breaks up with Rory, Rory dates Jess. It's not a good relationship. Jess has got incredibly bad communication skills, and I love the scenes where they're having a positive relationship and it's working well, but those scenes are actually few and far between. It was kind of all build up and no result when it came to their relationship. So yeah, he ends up going to try and live with his dad, his estranged dad, who he's never really met before. At the end of season 3, he ends up leaving. He finds out that he's not going to graduate from high school, and this is their final year, his and Rory's final year in high school before university or, adult life. And he finds out he can't graduate because he's basically never really bothered showing up for school, despite being very intelligent. And Luke tells him, if you won't redo the school year and graduate, then you've got to go. So he leaves. He comes back during season 4 a couple of times. Rory doesn't date anyone the whole of season 4. Jess comes back a couple of times and he's still in love with Rory, and he's trying to work on bettering himself for her because he still wants to be with her. In season 4, Dean gets married. His rebound is actually a really sweet girl called Lindsay, but she's very much a rebound. At his bachelor party, he gets very drunk and he's calling out for Rory. He still loves Rory, clearly, but he goes through with the wedding, so he's married. Rory's off at uni, so she's not back in Stars Hollow, so she's not really seeing Dean. Obviously she's not seeing Jess because he's moved away. She sees him a couple of times, which is kind of like weird and crazy. He basically tells her that he loves her and then just runs off. Or he gets in his car and he drives away because she's kind of like frozen and she doesn't know what to say. Breaks my heart, but at the end of season 4, Dean and Rory start to get closer again, despite the fact that he's married. Dean ends up coming to Rory's dorm at uni. She's just about to leave, really. She's packing up, but then Jess shows up. Dean leaves, and Jess basically says to Rory that from the second he saw her, he thought they were meant to be together, and he wants Rory to leave with him, and go away with him. I've never been fully, understood what he meant by that. To go away for the summer, or, go away for good and not go back to Yale. I don't ever think he would have asked that of her. I think he only meant come away with me for the summer and let's try and work on our relationship. But she says no. And he says, don't say no to make me shut up or make me go away. Only say no if you really don't want to be with me. And she says no. And he very sadly leaves, which breaks my heart. I ship Jess most of all. We'll get to the one other suitor, who is Logan. Jess is who I would be most interested in for myself. Therefore, that's probably why I ship them. Right person, wrong time. That's my personal opinion on them. says, "I don't belong here, not anymore," and he breaks up with her. He realises that he's kind of trying to hold on to something that he lost a long time ago, and him and Rory are never going to be a long-term thing, so he ends it in season 5. And Rory slowly starts to get to know during season 5 and date during season 5 and 6 and 7 Logan Huntsberger, who is cut from her grandparents' cloth, even wealthier than her grandparents. The Huntsberger family has a lot of money. She meets him at Yale. I don't like Logan all that much because he's not my cup of tea as a partner or as a person. I don't like blondes for a starter. But he's very arrogant and I don't know, he's not an awful person, but he's not my kind of person at all. So whilst I don't think necessarily he's a bad fit for Rory, I still don't like them together because I don't like him, if that makes sense. But it's not that I think him and Rory are bad together. Some crazy stuff happens when they're in a relationship. But, yeah, he ends up proposing to her near the end of season 7. And she says no, because she feels like she's too young. She's, 22, 23. She still thinks that there's stuff that she wants to do. She loves him, but she doesn't want to be tied down in that way. And she says, "Can't we wait? Why do we have to do this now?" And I never fully understood why Logan was so all or nothing about them being married now. But he is, and she gives him the ring back after they graduate and they go their separate ways. So at the end of season 7, Rory doesn't end up with anybody, and Lorelai ends up with Luke, which I think is quite realistic. Rory's still very young, and I think it's less likely that she'd be tied to somebody at that point, so it makes sense. I was never mad about it. The last time you see Jess is season 6, though. He's got, some great lines and he impacts the rest of Rory's future. I genuinely think that. So in season 5, Rory takes an internship with Logan's dad, Mitchum, at a newspaper that he's acquired, and basically after a little while working there, he tells her that she doesn't have it. She doesn't have what it takes to be a journalist, and she's crushed by this, and she spirals, and that leads her to convincing Logan to steal a boat with her, for which they are arrested, and she's given community service time. She takes this. Again, I think people are very critical on how she takes this. Obviously, stealing a yacht's very bad. Don't do that. But she decides to drop out of Yale because she thinks, well, the best guy in the business has told me that I don't have it. So what's the point of me carrying on at university? And I think people are very harsh on her decision to do that, like, oh, poor princess, one little knockback and she's out. But again, she's very young, and I just think that that one person, just completely knocked her. I do think it's a bit crazy, but again, she's young, and obviously that was something that meant a lot to her, and she now thinks that she can't do it. So at the end of season 5, she drops out of Yale, and she moves in with Richard and Emily, because Lorelai is just she's dumbfounded by the whole situation, but willing to support Rory through the whole stealing a yacht or a boat thing, but not with dropping out of Yale. So for half of season 6, let's get season 6. So for half of season 6, Rory and Lorelai aren't talking to each other, and it's horrible and it feels so unnatural. It's just she has a job, it's not like she doesn't work, but you know. And Jess is the one who makes her realise that she's frozen and that this isn't what she wants. Jess and her arrange to meet up because Jess wants to show Rory that he's written a book, and he's very grateful because he thinks Rory is the person who inspired him to do that. And so they agree to meet up, and Logan turns up. He's immediately on the back foot. He thinks Rory's agreed to meet up with this ex-boyfriend behind his back. It's really not like that, but he's already angry. He gets very drunk and he acts not good. And Jess ends up being like, what are you doing? Why are you with this guy? We used to make fun of guys like him. And why did you drop out of Yale? The iconic line. You know, I could quote to you, you know. Why did you drop out of Yale? And she goes, it's complicated. And he goes, it's not complicated. You know, he's like, this isn't you. I know you. And this isn't you. I don't understand why you're doing this. And he's that she needs to go back, and she does go back to Yale, and somehow, even though with all her time off, still graduates at the same time as everyone else. Kind of random. So, I mean, that was like, God, what, like half an hour just talking about their romantic relationships. Obviously takes up a big majority of the seasons. Let me know who you liked the most, with who. I could spend hours just summarising the whole show, but I kind of want to end this little video talking more about the pop culture side of things, because, oh, by the way, this is my What's with the Moo Moo jumper, which in, like, I think it's the first episode of series 1, Rory wears a sweater very similar to this, and Lorelai says to her, what's with the Moo Moo? Because this is really massive, oversized, white knitted, chunky sweater. Anyway, it's got one of the best actually. My cat's just got up. He's probably going to bed now. It's got the best references in it. Every 10 seconds there's a reference to a play, a book, a TV show, a movie, a piece of music. The soundtrack and just the music they talk about has shaped my interest so much. It's already a lot of what my parents listened to when I was growing up anyway, but it introduced me more to the Smiths, to Mazzy Star, to The Cure. So many people, and around this time, around fall, autumn time, I get out my Gilmore Girls playlist that I probably made on Spotify when I was about 17, and I play all of them. Movies. Obviously I'm a film graduate, so I love an obscure movie reference. Every 10 seconds there's a movie reference. There's a reference to something. And what I love the most is, as the years have gone on, every single time I rewatch the series, which I do at least twice a year, sometimes more, I get and I understand more and more references. I think, is it in series 1 or series 2, there's a reference to the film Sunset Boulevard. Lorelai's talking about she wants to get a tattoo on her bum of William Holden, who is the star of Sunset Boulevard, and there's a couple of like play on words about one of the quotes in the film, and only recently had I seen Sunset Boulevard, and suddenly I understood the reference, and it's so satisfying. It's a show that really doesn't dumb anything down. If you get the reference, then you feel great and you feel so in the know, and I got that. And if you don't, then it doesn't take anything away from the humour of the show or the content of the show. It's just maybe somewhere along in your life, either you look it up to understand it and be introduced to a new thing that you might enjoy, whether that be book or TV show or music, or perhaps it's something that you'll come across later on in life and suddenly be like, oh yeah, oh, that makes sense now, I remember that. So Gilmore Girls just shaped me so much. I haven't even touched on really characters like Lane and Michelle and Suki and Paris. There's so much I could talk about. But I'm aware this will probably be my longest video ever, which is kind of crazy. I was debating making this video simply because I'm aware that this is such a niche topic to ramble on about. But I hope guys have still gotten a lot of autumn cozy vibes and relaxation from it. And if you watch the show, if you like the show, let me know any of your views and opinions of it. If there's discussions, keep them respectful. But yeah, I want to start to make some more fall, autumnal content, and to me, the start of autumn is watching Gilmore Girls from the start again, and I think that's maybe one of the only DVDs I haven't shown. Perfect autumnal vibes. This one's got a rose, a letterbox, a coffee cup, a bicycle, the Stars Hollow sign, another rose, and a takeout box.